I know this message is potent because this is the third time I've tried to record this video. Okay, there is a moment that catches a lot of people off guard in relationships. It's when someone is upset, maybe even saying things like, no one understands me, and you realize you actually do understand. You've been through something similar, maybe even the exact same thing. Usually the circumstances are just different enough that they can say they're not the same, but the lesson really is. So you try to connect. You try to help, you try to say the right thing, and somehow still it doesn't land. And worse, it might feel like it even makes things more tense. That's confusing. It's a very confusing moment because you start wondering, am I making things worse? Am I helping? Am I not helping enough? What am I doing? What do I need to be doing? But sometimes the answer is simpler and harder to accept than that. It's not about you. That means you can't do anything about it, truly, except for be there for the person. So when someone says no one understands me, they're not always making a factual statement. They're expressing emotional overload. In that state, the brain isn't looking for accuracy, it's looking for relief. It's trying to discharge pressure. So even when you do understand them, even if you've lived it, that's not always what they can access in the moment. And that's not always going to be helpful to mention because they're not asking for perspective yet. They're asking for, without always knowing it, they're asking for emotional containment, a place to land, a nervous system that feels safe enough to stop bracing. And if you happen to be the person that they're talking to, especially someone close to them, you become the nearest surface for that emotion to hit. Hopefully, you don't become a punching bag. Boundaries are important here. And this is not because you caused it, but because you're there. And so this is where it gets tricky because when you do understand someone's experience, you naturally want to bridge the gap. You want to say things like, I've been there too. Man, I really understand that. This is what helped me. You're not alone. And sometimes those things are not helpful when someone is emotionally overloaded. They can feel like those responses can accidentally feel like minimizing, fixing, even dismissing their current intensity, even though that's not your intention at all. So you get this strange mismatch. You're offering connection, they're experiencing pressure, and it turns into disconnection. And it can feel personal, especially for the person trying to help, but often it isn't. And especially for either party, actually. That's the point of this. What's often happening is the moment is not rejection of you, the person in their presence. It's emotional overload combined with limited capacity. When people are overwhelmed, their nervous system narrows. They don't have access to nuance yet. They don't have room for perspective yet. They just have the feeling, and feelings, oh, these tricky feelings don't always want solutions. Sometimes they just want to be witnessed. And so the thing that often helps is really simple. That's the part that surprises people because it almost feels too simple. Sometimes the most helpful thing is not advice. Sometimes it's not perspective. Sometimes it's not even shared experience. Sometimes it's just a listening ear, a quiet presence, and most often a hug. People don't ask for hugs, especially since the vid and everything, but physical or emotional safety tells the nervous system you are not alone in this. It shows the nervous system this. And when that lands, something subtle can shift. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but enough that the intensity softens. And once it softens, then perspective can enter, but not before. This matters because it matters especially in close relationships because closeness changes expectations. When someone is your partner, your close friend, your family member, you naturally feel responsible. You want to help more, fix more, reach deeper. And when it doesn't work, it can feel like failure. But intimacy doesn't remove emotional overload, it actually exposes it more because people feel the safest to express the full weight of what they're carrying. So you end up seeing a more raw emotion, not less. And that can make it feel like you're constantly doing it wrong, even when you're doing your best. And so to be there for somebody, there's a key shift in understanding. It's one of the hardest but most freeing realizations. You are not always being evaluated in those moments. You're not being measured for how good you are or how much you can show up for that person or what you could fix for them. Sometimes you are simply the nearest safe place for somebody with something that was already there in their life. And maybe the real shift is learning this. You don't have to carry the responsibility of fixing every emotional wave someone has in your presence. Sometimes your role is smaller but still deeply important. And that is to stay, to listen, to not take it personal, and to trust that sometimes emotional regulation comes before resolution. Emotional regulation comes before resolution, and understanding comes after being understood.